you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
and good morning, Muskegon, to all of you out there in radio, podcast, iHeart Radio, and computer land. This is I Am Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley, here in Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios on the beautiful shores of Mona Lake, with my friend and engineer, that legendary Oscar Osbo. Although, Oscar, you got a little bit of non-legendary look about you today, little gravity as opposed to gravitas in your face. So, Oscar must have been out doing some stuff with the Polka Time guys late last night. But I am here with two very familiar faces to the Eye on Muskegon radio show. Two faces just loaded, just topped off.
Larded. I like larded better.
With political.
Are you making it a comment on my weight?
No, I am. Although I might, perhaps that's been snuck in there. So, but these folks are absolutely filled with political gravitas. We've got Captain Fred Birch.
Yep. Totally larded up.
The totally gravitas to the max. And I'm going to say author Sean Mullally, but many other things, Muskegon Community College trustee. And good morning to both of you guys. And all three of you guys, although Oscar probably wouldn't have heard it if I said it, because he's just sitting there lump-like. But
he's doing this because I picked on him earlier before we.
That's right. I'm getting my revenge.
He's getting his revenge on air. Okay.
It's just like Oprah. You know, it's her show. She can do whatever she wants, and I'm getting my revenge right here on air. Hey, we continue the lockstep hold on the number one rating on political talk in West Michigan. And, again, we are the only show that does have back and forth, and we do try to bring different points of view here. And, of course, just so the folks know, because I've had a couple people contact me and say, hey, you haven't had some of the other county commissioners. Certainly I am running for county commissioner in Tuesday's election. You haven't had Commissioner Bob Skolnick on.
Yeah, where's Bob?
Every one of these folks has been invited on more than one occasions. So, and that invite continues to this day. So we do invite folks. Some folks have the courage to come and face the music, face Oscar's sometimes gravitas-filled board, and some do not. But we are here this morning, and we do want to hear from you because this election is big for Muskegon. Maybe not earth-shattering, but it certainly is got a lot of big elections, primary decisions to be made. And if you want to give us a call, we'd love to hear from you. The number is 231-830-3109. And we don't have a phone-in guest today, so you can call for almost an hour and a half now. You got lots and lots of opportunities.
And the phone works today, too.
And the phones, we expect the phones to work. Yeah, we've had.
That's a plus.
Oh my golly! Well, we had the big storm, over a week ago, and that caused some issues. But we are looking forward to.
The phone is ringing.
There you go.
There we go. Well,
that helps.
That helps. In lieu of phone calls, Oscar will throw that in every once in a while to remind us. So, anyway, hey, on this day in history, just so that you can all get a sense of what this coming up election is about on Tuesday and also in November. In 1861, the United States federal government levied its first what? Come on, guys. I'm sitting here with an author and a naval captain.
If it's a levy, it must be a tax.
Income tax. There we go. And it was the first federal income tax. The tax was 3% of all incomes over $800. That certainly would have been the 1% that everybody is so angry. Started giving the right to the various governments and non-governmental organizations like the Intermediate School District and others, the right to come and stick their fingers into our pockets. They found it was really fun. They enjoyed that. So anyway, they've gone up from a 3% tax to what we have today. And I would just like to read a couple of quotes here. This is from a person who I don't know who it was, David Pratt. It says, elections are won by men and women chiefly because most people elections do have consequences, and those we elect are far too often re-elect have forgotten how government works and for whom they work for, and that ever-growing, power-hungry state and federal government are not the answer to the problem, but 80% of the time they are the problem. And I think certainly those of us on the right believe that. I think there are many of us, conservatives and Republicans, do believe that government can do good things, but they certainly, as Ronald Reagan has said, they quite often do far more than they are competent at doing. So, okay, today we're going to talk about this primary election, and kind of to frame it a little bit, I'd like to just give a little background to some, because it's funny, Sean in particular, when I talk to my liberal friends, and you're on the left, I will mention something, and they'll say, "Well, I didn't hear anything about this," and what I found is that people on the left and on the right tend to kind of self-censor, if you will, the news media. And I have a little game that I play in the morning. I have two TVs side by side, and I'll watch maybe the Today Show and Fox News right at the top of the hour in the morning, and usually at 6:30. And they have absolutely different news.
Well, I think that's especially true just in recent years. We don't have Walter Cronkite telling everybody the news every night
and
anymore.
That's the way it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So a couple things that some people may not be aware of. A lot of talk about the tremendous successes that the Tea Party movement had 2 years ago in the 2010 elections, not only in electing more conservative folks to the on the Republican side, but the tremendous successes, the absolute tsunami of Republican victories 2 years ago, but not so much written about the continued success, and something, of course, many of us know. And we do have a phone call, but we'll take it in just a moment because I want to finish this point. But a lot of us are aware, Richard Lugar, long-time Republican senator in Indiana, lost very, very heavily in a Republican primary just last month. And just last week, a total unknown to most of us, a gentleman named Ted Cruz, although I understand he's an absolutely brilliant man, blew out the Republican establishment's candidate to become the next Senate candidate, the Republican Senate candidate in Texas. And this movement, I think, becomes more and more powerful as the citizenry on both the left and the right side start to realize how deeply in debt we are. And of course, the campaign of many of us who are running for county commissioner are pointing out the fact that, for instance, Wayne County, outed, if you will, by the Detroit Free Press on their pension plan, showing that their pension plan was only 60% funded, which is one of the worst.
Twice as good as ours.
Well, not only that, it's one of the worst in the state, and yet our pension funded ratio for the retirement benefits, which is by far and away the biggest portion of the county unfunded pensions, is 27.6%. People are finding out that we're spending money that we cannot afford to pay. But two items came up, and then we'll get to the phone. Two items came up that to me are really critical. The group that does the American Academy of Actuaries. This is the group that determines the rules that the businesses, but also municipalities, must obey in terms of reporting. And listen to this. It says, the American Academy of Actuaries cautioned today that a commonly used measure for considering a pension plan healthy, its funded ratio, fails to provide sufficient measure on its own of the plan's financial health. And here's the quote. Any realistic of a pension plan should include several measures, not just one. Somehow 80% has become a perceived standard, but that is a myth we need to replace with facts. Now, this is the group that says that sets the rules up. And they've said what's happened is that the politicians have said, 80% is fine, which, by the way, the other portion, the smaller portion of the Muskegon County pension is about 80% funded, although that number seems to be coming down. It has come down for the last 3 years. But even that, which the county commissioners point to as being adequate, is now being debunked. And, of course, I can't repeat this too often because it's too critical. It's almost $70 million in unfunded liability here, and the funding ratio for the Muskegon County Retirement Health Plan is 27.6%. Now, that's awful. And again, like I said, the Detroit Free Press was having a fit over the Wayne County, which is where Detroit is, folks, their pension plan being funded at 60%. So,
what's interesting is to contrast that with there's one example in government where I think they've gone to the other extreme, and that's with the U.S. Post Office. To address a lot of these concerns, they've asked the Post Office, Congress has, to further fund their pension into the future. But they've projected it so far into the future that the Post Office is being expected to fully fund the pension for workers for 75 years ahead. So for workers that aren't even born yet, they're already putting money aside for their pensions.
That's I think a very interesting issue, and I'd like to have a show about that because it is the opposite side. Now, I don't know enough to really get into an in-depth conversation about that, but we do know this, that the American Academy of Actuaries says 80% isn't enough, folks, and in Muskegon County, we have 80% on the smaller of the two funds and 27% on the much larger.
It's beyond that, too, Jim. The assumptions are all important as well. If you assume that you're going to get an 8% return on your money, and in reality there's a 1.5 or a 2% return on the money, then you need to look at it and say, boy, we got a bigger problem than even just what you were talking about. It's a matter of mathematics.
Well, let's address that because that was my next point, and thank you for serving up a softball. That's where the gravitas comes from here. But New Jersey, which some might consider, given that it's got a Republican governor, their pension fund last year returned 2.26. In other words, 2.25%. That's the return. This assumption that Muskegon County has $109 million in unfunded liability, for instance, assumes going forward that they're going to make 8.5% total return going forward year after year after year after year. Now, every county commissioner ought to be aware, or they ought to be fired. They ought to be aware that isn't going to happen. Matter of fact, one of the candidates had suggested that if the county commission, or if the assumptions were moved to something more realistic, like 6%, that in fact this $109 million of underfunded would actually go over $200 million. So, Fred, great point. The reality is that these funds are not going to be able to return these kind of returns down the road. And we've got a caller, hopefully still on the line, and we'll take a little break. And when we come back, we will either take a call or we won't.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a SelectQuote agent with a true story of how SelectQuote goes to bat for you buying term life insurance. A while back, a man called me who had prostate cancer. He asked if I could beat a very high quote another life insurance agent had given him. I said, let me see. Well, I took his pertinent information, then shopped the highly rated, price-competitive companies we represent, and found one who pre-approved him for a premium way below what he had been quoted. When it comes to term life insurance, no other company touches SelectQuote's experience and expertise in finding the right policy at the right price for almost anyone. How about you?
For your free quote, call 1-800-950-2636. That's 1-800-950-2636. 1-800-950-2636. Or go to SelectQuote.com. We shop. You save.
2 years ago, Holly Hughes promised she would go to Lansing to change things, to balance the budget by cutting spending, eliminating wasteful programs, lowering taxes, and creating a climate that encourages businesses to create new jobs. And you know what? That's exactly what she did.
Holly Hughes started balancing the budget by ending generous health care benefits for legislators and has even taken a pay cut herself.
And to get our economy back on the right track, Holly was a leader in the effort to replace the job-killing Michigan business tax with a tax that was simple and fair.
And she voted to lower our state income tax rate as well.
And now things are starting to change for the better.
Unemployment is down.
And businesses are starting to expand.
But Holly Hughes knows there is still work to be done.
Holly Hughes, Main Street experience,
and West Michigan values.
let's keep her working for us.
Paid for by the Friends of Holly Hughes.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes.
And those pockets of our clothes where we used to keep our hard-earned money continue to be slid into. Assaulted. And actually, it's not just where we keep our money, it's where we keep our credit cards, and it's the credit cards that are actually being larded up with bills.
Larded, there's that word again.
That's the word of the day, folks. I thought it was going to be gravitas, but apparently it is larded. One other thing, just getting back to this, is that another city, and again, I mention this because quite often my friends on the left aren't aware of this because for whatever reason, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and the group don't think it's important. We here know that the Muskegon Heights school system went bankrupt. We do know that at some point someone's going to have to pick up those bills, and we do know that many of those employees are not going to be. Certainly, they lost their jobs, but they're not. They lost benefits, they lost income, and of course, nobody ever really talks much about the children or the parents of the taxpayers. But
now the whole situation's in a legal limbo
and now
the moment.
Now it's in a big legal limbo.
We don't know who's in charge.
So spending without having any concept of how it's going, where the money's going to come down the road, which seems to be the rule, certainly at the Muskegon County level, is something that does have ultimate results. And the third city in California, San Bernardino, is bankrupt again. And I'll just read it again. The bulk of the city's debt was due to unfunded liabilities related to pension and benefits for the city's employees and obligations to employee groups and labor contracts. So what's happening here is nothing new, but what is happening here is an absolute denial from the county executive's standpoint and virtually every county commissioner with the exception of Alan Jagger.
Yeah, now, California is in an interesting position because for many years now, they have had a rule with regards to the raising of taxes that requires a supermajority. And so 50% plus one can't vote to raise taxes. So it makes it very difficult for them if they want to pay for a pension program by levying a tax, they can't without a supermajority.
And
it's
yet,
interesting.
They have, in fact, raised taxes tremendously over the years, and California is one of the highest taxed states in the nation, so I don't think that you can blame it on that. I'd like to make a couple of points on the California and then ultimately a general point about the unfunded. First of all, on the California thing, this is not a singular event. There is analysis that's been done that says that 30% of their cities and about 20% of their counties will go under in the next couple of years. Now, that's a tremendous amount of problems. And what happens during a bankruptcy? When a bankruptcy occurs, all of the contracts are opened back up for the employees, okay, to put the counties or the cities back on a stable financial road. And here's the issue that I see. I cannot imagine why government employees are not flocking towards fiscal conservatives that are trying to solve the problem, and rather continuing to vote for folks who are going to try to throw money at it. Because the people that are going to be hurt, the promises that are going to be broken because the cities and the counties are going bankrupt, are the government employees. Those are the folks that are going to lose their pensions, lose their benefits, etc. And the retirees, in particular, are going to lose those things in the future. And so you're much better off trying to make sure that you've got a fiscal conservative moving into government and trying to fix the problem as best you can. And as Jim just said, if the problem is even fixable, you want to try to go in and actually dampen down the spending, dampen down the promises that are being made, and then try to keep the promises that have already been made, because that's the responsible thing to do. The irresponsible thing to do is to continue to promise everybody the world knowing that we can't deliver.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think when I speak with my friends on the left, people in unions, when they see the real numbers. I mean, I don't know, Sean, were you aware of the fact that Wayne County, one of the most miserably managed counties likely in the country, has a funding ratio of 60%, and Muskegon County's got a funding ratio of 27%. Have you heard those numbers before?
No, I'm not familiar with those.
Okay, well, they're facts. The numbers were taken out of the most recent county annual financial report, what they call the CAFR. I think when people who are in these unions, which is primarily the government employees tend to be in unions, when they do hear these facts, they get very alarmed. What's happened is that their union leaders and their elected officials have either not told them anything about it, or they've done what the leaders in Muskegon County have done, where I believe it was Bonnie Hammersley, who's the county supervisor, who said when confronted with my complaint in the newspaper that we were horribly underfunded, she said, well, that only matters if everybody retires today. That's an absolute flat-out lie. This funding that we're underfunded doesn't mean we've got to pay everybody's retirement till they're, a 24-year-olds till they're 48 years old, which is the earliest retirement for some of the folks. It simply means that the actuaries say you have to be on track. So they're either not aware of these types of events, statewide, countywide, or others, or they're being lied to, like in many cases we have been in this county.
And the simple truth really becomes, and you talked about it earlier, that money could be, if we're pouring money into funds that are not producing at the 8.5%.
Correct.
We're pouring money into there. That money could have been used ostensibly for other things. So the simple test on whether or not you are on track or not on track is the pension funding going up or going down as a percentage of the budget overall? And it's clear that it's going up, and therefore it is crowding out services. And if it crowds out services, then what is the function of government? Function of government becomes to be a government. Therefore, it's a self-licking ice cream cone. Who needs a self-licking ice cream cone?
Well, certain government officials who get elected on that platform. Well, look, let's. That's a great point, Sally. It's all too true. Let's get started on our little review of the election, and we're going to kind of stick to who we think is going to win, not who ought to win. And let's start right at the top. I'll let Sean start here. The U.S. Senate race, a toughie for the Republicans.
Well, we've got a very crowded Republican field. No challenge for Debbie Stabenow in the Democratic primary. And from all the polling I've seen, it looks like Pete Hoekstra is going to come far and away on top in that primary. The big game is going to be the general for this race. And looking at Pete Hoekstra's career, he's good at winning primaries. He's won the 2nd Congressional District general election many times in a row. This will be the first time in his political career he's faced a really contested general election where he's never before had to craft a message to try to appeal to moderates and perhaps Democratic voters, and that's going to be a first-time experience for him.
How he does that will determine how he wins.
I got a couple of points on this. Number one, remember Hoekstra was in fact in the governor's primary the last go around. I believe he came in second, if I'm not mistaken, but it was a distant second to
in again another very crowded field.
Very crowded field. But really, this field is not as crowded as it once was. We've had Gary Glenn has essentially dropped out and endorsed Clark Durant.
Okay, let me just touch base on that quickly. Just be aware that you don't want to be voting for Gary Glenn, even though his name will be on the ballot. And if you did send in a absentee ballot, you can. I think they call it go to your city clerk or whatever, and have that ballot spoiled and get reissued another.
Right.
We got about a minute to go here.
And the second part on that is that is as a result of a bunch of Tea Party folks or types of folks who have been working together, and for once they are starting to unify, albeit late in the game. They're starting to unify around Clark Durant.
Who do you think is going to win?
I still think that Hoekstra is going to win. Okay. I think it'll be closer than maybe what Sean has indicated. I think Hoekstra will win because of the name recognition, but I think I see Clark starting to move up into the Clark Durant starting to move up in the polls. I think it'll be a little bit closer, maybe within 10 points.
Interesting. Well, I can't predict a number, but I would think that Pete is likely to be the candidate. Yeah. So, okay, we're going to come back. We're going to go through just about everybody else we can find right after the top of the hour.
Well, you still got a few seconds left.
Oh,
that's okay. You can.
Oh my golly! I missed. We almost had dead air there for a moment. We'll be back with
Robbie song or something.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops, or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Bunch of sorry so-and-sos, you got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
dead gum government, and here we are talking about electing and re-electing a bunch of them. So as much as we may believe that the government is dead gum, we need it. We got it, whether we need it or not. And we might as well be informed, and that would be our hope here. Sean, you had some comments about the next
the next race down our list here is the second congressional race where Bill Huizenga will be running for re-election, and this is going to be the first time in many years you're not going to see, at least in the primary, a Democrat's name on the ballot. And the reason is there was a candidate lined up who had to withdraw for medical reasons shortly after the filing deadline, which kind of left the party in a little bit of a bind. So there's a candidate running as a write-in, and that's Willie German Jr., current Muskegon City Commissioner. If he gets 1,500 write-in votes, then he'll have his name on the general election ballot.
Okay, so if you want now, in order to do this, though, you need to pick up the Democrat ballot, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then you now I know that there was some question when remember Markowski, which is kind of a hard to spell name. There was we got the era of hanging chads and things of that sort. How accurate do you have to be? Do you have to put in Willie E. German Jr. or what's necessary to be a successful write-in?
Well, I've heard different things on that. I've heard it said that as long as it's, the intent of the voter is clear, like maybe it could be Will or Bill or leave off the junior or something.
So intent of the voter is the main issue.
I've heard that, and I've also heard you better get it spot on. So it's Willie German Jr.
Willie, okay, not E. Okay,
and
Willie
German spelled G-E?
Like the country, German.
Okay.
Just as a side comment, I was kind of disappointed that Dave Taki had to withdraw.
That was disappointing.
Because Dave is quite an articulate young man, and he's one of those guys on the left that I respect quite a bit. So I was a little disappointed to see him drop out.
From what I understand, though, he is doing well. He had to go in for some surgery at a very inopportune time, but he's doing well these days.
Right.
Well, we might get him as a guest sometime here because he is a very bright guy. Okay, next race. Let's take the 91st, which is going to be between the incumbent Holly Hughes and the challenger, oftentimes challenger and candidate Max. Is it Reeksey? Reeksey. By the way, we all agree it's pretty clear that Bill Huizenga is going to win
Yes, I think he'll.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's not a race at this point.
Until the district ever gets redrawn, that's
a safe seat. That's a safe seat for Republicans. And frankly, I don't like safe seats myself, be they Republican or Democrat. I like the fact that people have to respond to the community.
But they have to walk the edge.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see it like Sean would. I'd like to see it a little closer. Okay, but here's one that's quite close. Holly's going to have a tough challenge come November, but she's running against Max Rixey. My view is Holly's going to win this in a walk.
Max is a very enthusiastic candidate.
You can say that, yeah.
Yeah, I think she'll definitely win, but I think there is so much excitement on the Democrat side of the ballot with the county prosecutor and the sheriff race that I think it'll be a little tighter than Holly would like to have it. She ought to be blowing Max out of the water, and I think he's going to get some votes because the folks that are going to be out there.
He's a colonel. So do you know him?
No, I do not.
Yeah, he's a colonel. Yeah, Max Rixey. Yeah, he's a colonel.
Yeah, he had. I read his biography. He had two tours in the military. One, I believe, in his 50s when he went back to, I believe, the first Gulf War.
Yeah, and the only reason why I want to make this point is that the die-hard, crawl-over-glass, conservative voters are going to pull that Republican side of the ballot no matter what. And there's a good possibility that some of them are less than enhanced by some of Holly's votes in the past. And so I think that there's an opportunity for them to register some displeasure there. And so it may be just a little bit close. I still don't think it's going to be.
Well, I'd like to just take a break and get into explain to folks what you just alluded to here. This is a very unusual election in many of the districts because, as you say, even though there is a race between Holly Hughes, this is for Republicans now. There's a race between Holly Hughes and, of course, there's nobody going after a Huizenga's seat and the Senate race, which ought to be important, but I just can't see any enthusiasm for that. And almost every one of these other races has Democrat incumbents, or they're in townships where it's almost all Democrat-driven. So you're going to see far more Democrat ballots picked up than you're going to see Republican ballots picked up. And I've had many Republicans tell me, look, I've got no important races, Republican races that are important to me here. I'm going to pick up a Democrat ballot, and I'm going to vote for the county prosecutor, and I'm going to vote for some of these other countywide races.
It may be the only vote they get. Well, it will be the only vote for prosecutor and sheriff that they get. Because whoever wins this primary is going to be the guy.
I think that's the way it's going to play out, because if it's going to be the inverse, I think, of what we saw in 2010. In 2010,
Absolutely.
During the primary, we had a very contested, hard-fought gubernatorial primary where Rick Snyder ended up coming out on top. And, of course, I was, at that time, trying to campaign. I was on the ballot in the Democratic primary and saw so many moderate, middle-of-the-road voters really wanting to participate in the Republican gubernatorial primary to have a say there. And the way our closed primaries work, it's a either-or scenario.
That's right. And so in fact, you had a lot of people, Democrats and, like you say, moderate voters that might normally have voted Democrat instead picked up the Republican primary ballot. And that's what's going to happen here. And I would suggest to any of you who think that incumbents are going to blow out somebody if you're a Republican, you pick up that ballot and you vote, or you get out and you do, in fact, vote when you might not be inclined. I think you'd be surprised. We certainly have seen this, that the Tea Party people, folks whose prime goal, prime interest is fiscal responsibility, they have been winning and winning and winning because they've been coming out and voting for their candidates. So in the area where you've got a contested race, and actually, Fred, this Holly Hughes race, which I think she's going to win in a walk, but who knows?
No, I think she will.
It will be a very light turnout. Anything can happen. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is somewhat similar, although way bigger turnout. This is the 92nd district. Marcia Hovey Wright has a challenger in Willie M. Walton.
Well, we ran. There were 9 of us running for that seat 2 years ago in the Democratic primary, and Marcia came out on top by a pretty good margin. Willie Walton ran that year also, and just like this year, has a campaign budget of 0.
Okay, you did a little research online.
Yeah, I mean the name's going to be on the ballot, but there's absolutely no ground game there, no signs or literature of any kind to be seen.
I think also Marcia has been very good as far as constituent outreach, which I think is she's just very good at making sure that she goes to the meetings, talks to people, responds to their concerns, all of those different things. I just don't see anybody unhappy enough with her that she is.
And she has solid union support financially and otherwise.
I've never seen anybody put more time and energy into the job than she has.
Yeah. She's done a real good job from that.
Yes, she has. I have seen she's been everywhere. All right, let's go to the two biggies here, the ones that have gotten the most play with debates that we have. Matter of fact, we have those debates videoed on onmuskegon.com if you want to see, if you haven't made up your mind yet. But let's start off with the county prosecutor. Sean, what's your thoughts? These are, by the way, all Democrat. The winner of this primary will be the county prosecutor probably for the next 20 years because that's just the way things work here in Muskegon County.
Mm-hmm. This is the most, at least I find, the most interesting race going on right now. It's very, very hard fought. You've got... I pulled up the campaign finance report to see what the budgets have been.
Okay.
And financially, DJ Hilson is far and away outspending the competition.
Okay. And he is by many folks the favorite at this point.
And how much is he throwing into it?
He's raised $37,000, and $10,000 of that came from a single fundraising dinner at Tony Tagg's house.
Okay, but $37,000 for a prosecutor's race is a lot of money.
That's very substantial. He's outspending more than 2 to 1. Mark Curtis, the other main contender, Steve Cordwin, is about $4,000. But really, for that amount of a spending margin, I would expect him to be just blowing away the competition. But it's still, from people I talk to and everything I see, I mean, it still seems like it could go either way.
Do you think because he's back by Tony Tagg, or do you think that has something to do with it, or no?
Yeah, DJ Hilson has been publicly supported by Tony Tagg and other kind of more of the establishment types within the prosecutor's office.
But I would throw in almost echoing exactly what Sean has said. My contacts, with people I talk to, I think it's probably a 50-50 shot at this point between Curtis and Hilson.
Yeah, all that extra spending really hasn't bought him landslide.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I just haven't seen the needle move in his direction. Now, I will tell you. I mean, the signs are out. They're proliferating all over the county. It's astonishing. Mm-hmm. I think it's about a 50-50 race.
Okay. Now you got to pick. Who do you think's going to win?
I'll go on a limb and say Curtis.
Okay, Sean.
I'd have to say Curtis too. Can't say for certain, but that's where my gut tells me, because it seems to be his support is more grassroots.
Well, I would also say Curtis, and here's my rationale. Given that this is going to be a Democrat ballot, and even though that Tony Tagg is run as a Democrat, and his anointed, if you will, replacement, DJ Hilson, who, by the way, is a very competent guy, but there are a lot of people on the left who are not happy with Tony Tagg. And they might have voted for him if there was a Republican opponent. But given that the Democrats now do have total control over this, I agree with both of you fellows that I think there might be a little backlash that is unexpected. But of course, having Steve Corwin in there, that throws a monkey wrench. But I'll go in. Yeah. I'll agree with both of you guys. Let's the next other biggie, real biggie, which does involve an incumbent, and that is the county sheriff. Fred.
I didn't expect to go first, but I'll tell you what my views are. I think it's going to come down between Jerkis and Rossler.
Oh boy, there's a big stretch.
Real big stretch. I think Rossler's going to pull it out just from his incumbent advantage. But I got to tell you, there's an awful lot of signage and stuff that's been spread out, and there's a lot of diehard Jerkis fans out there. Yeah. So, but I think Rossler will pull it out, and
this one's going to be close. Also, Jerkis is spending much more than Rossler, which is very unusual for a challenger.
Now, wait, tell me that.
outspend
That's
an
interesting.
incumbent.
What are the numbers that you show?
According to the campaign finance reports, I
Yep.
just pulled them up last night. Rossler spent about $6,600, and Jerkis $14,000.
Holy moly!
And
Jerkis'
if you-
signs are about 3 times as big as
That's
Dean
just it.
Rossler's,
If
too.
you,
Does
if
it
you drive around town, you
yeah.
can see where the money's gone. There's billboards.
Signs
Where is the money
everywhere.
coming from there? That's a huge jump up. Where is the money coming from for Jerkis?
Well, I didn't dig down into that much detail. I had a lot of candidates.
Well, so
to
we
look
still
up,
have
but-
time. You can get on our computers this afternoon, and we can do our
There you
little.
go.
But that's interesting. Okay, who do you think's going to win that one?
I'd say it's really tough. I might give Rossler a little bit of an edge because of the power of an incumbency, despite being outspent. I guess the biggest complaint I've heard, some people are upset about the letters policy at the jail, and there are some people that's their prime concern, and they're holding him responsible for that.
Holding him hostage.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this business on the power of the incumbency, I think this is going to be, in general, an anti-incumbent year. And I think that actually a lot of this, a lot of my thinking ends up flowing from that. But in Rossler's case, I think he's done, a reasonable job. Again, this goes back to what we were talking about with Marcia Hovey Wright. I don't think there's a tremendous amount of people that are mad, at him.
Do you think
in an office like that too, an anti-incumbent attitude might play out more at a legislative commission level. But
so that's one of the reasons why I think that.
Do you think name recognition would have anything to do with it too?
Well, let me tell you, he's got some name recognition.
Right, with
There's
his
no
dad
doubt
and
about
all,
that.
yeah.
Well, as does Jerkis, which goes back a little further. But I would just add my thoughts. When I went to the debates, I thought that that Rossler clearly had the sense that he was the guy in charge. Jerkis, I thought, presented himself well, and I don't think that Dobis really did, unfortunately for him. But I have been hearing from folks who have connections with the Democrat side of the ballot that they feel that Jerkis has got a tremendous amount of support. It'd be interesting. I wish we'd taken a look at that $14,000. I'm still going to suggest, or I'm still going to think that Rossler will be the nominee. But I would just say this. Rossler has been, by far and away, the most articulate advocate of the new jail without articulating any specifics other than it's full and it's a mess. And I would say that given that one of the responsibilities of the sheriff is to keep the jail from having leaky pipes and smelling and things of that sort. And he's got the biggest budget, I believe, of any elected official in the county, that if in fact he's allowed that jail to fall into such disrepair without articulating, wait a minute, folks, we need to fix this up. I think that alone is reason to vote against him.
Yeah, but I think, here now you're starting to proselytize.
Yes, I am.
And you made it very clear we were to talk about who we thought was going to win, not campaign on the air. Now, I will say though,
but it's his show.
Yeah,
but
that's exactly right. But he's
but
so
just like the county
Machiavellian,
commissioner, we can change the rules in mid-meeting.
He shackles my arms and then says,
right.
"Oh, but I can do that." But I would say, bottom line on the jail stuff, and I do agree with you, as you well know. I think that somebody has got to start pulling up what the actual requirements are, if there are requirements for a new jail. And once we get the requirements up, then we can start looking for solutions. We're doing this backwards. We're looking for solutions before we even know what the requirements are.
Yep.
We used to call that having a solution, looking for a requirement. We used to get the vendors in the Navy come in all the time, shopping their latest and greatest gadget and saying, "Oh, isn't this fantastic?" and then expecting you to come up with some kind of use for it. Well, that's kind of what's going on. But the problem is that there really isn't that big a difference between the two primary contenders.
Yeah, Jerkis is fully supportive of a new jail.
They're both supportive of a jail, so it's Mox Nix.
Well, the only difference is in my proselytization is that Jerkis is not responsible for the current condition of the jail, whereas the current the incumbent Sheriff Rossler is, and he's actually using that as a positive, which seems odd to me.
Yeah, but
anyway,
there's not going to be a change then if the other one says Jerkis is for it.
Well, Jerkis hasn't articulated that argument, so I suspect he might agree with Rossler and Nuts. But anyway, I don't want to beat that one nearly as heavily as Captain Fred has beat it. So we will move on.
I'm just making you play by your own rules.
There we go. There we go. The rules do change occasionally. Okay, the final countywide election is going to be between the current incumbent Nancy Waters and Manda Mateer. Mm-hmm. John, run with it.
Well, to start from a financial perspective again, I did pull their campaign finance reports up with several others last night, and Nancy Waters has spent $8,300 entirely self-financed. She opened up her own checkbook for that, which is a much easier way to run a campaign.
Yes, if you've got the bucks, why not?
Fundraising can be the most tedious aspect. But Manda Mateer came in at $2,300 roughly spent, and that came from a lot of small donors in a $10 to $20 range. Looked like from fundraiser tickets.
So
and
she's done the grassroots.
Yep.
route.
So whatever impact you see from her out there, it's because of a lot of legwork.
All right. And who do you think is going to win this?
I think Nancy Waters will win it again.
Now, you hesitate here. Do you think it's going to be close?
Well, I'm never think anything's a sure thing.
Okay,
but
you've been there, done that.
I do think that Nancy's out there being very active campaigning. She's got the name recognition, and from having been in office now, and I think she's in a good position.
Okay, Fred,
I think it's admirable how cautious Sean is being about things. To tell you the truth, I have to tell you that. There's a lot of diehard Manda fans out there, and they're very vocal, and they write a lot of letters, make a lot of comments, that kind of stuff. But I have to tell you that from my standpoint, Nancy has done a pretty efficient job as the county clerk. I've spent more time down there than I want to, and she's done a great job. I go back to this. I don't think anybody's really mad at her. Kind of a thing. And so I think that in her case, incumbency is going to work towards her campaign and for her campaign. I would say that it's not going to be very close. That's my opinion.
I would agree with you, Fred. I think that unless somebody can make a case that the county clerk's office is not being efficiently run, or there's some real issue there, that Nancy has done a good job, I think, by most views.
I would say that both of them are very highly qualified.
Yeah, and again, if there was an anti-incumbent tsunami out there, that might be an issue. I would, again, I've not heard anybody really convincingly at this point argue that
I think what you
something's
said,
wrong there.
I think what you said earlier, Jim, is true, that in Muskegon County, incumbents do tend to get reelected. And it's not a universal rule, because as we've seen at various times in the past, if they screw up, they're not reelected if it's in a very visible fashion.
But it has to be pretty public.
But yeah, Nancy,
we see nothing like that.
Nancy hasn't screwed up, or has so far anyone else on this list that
actually, if you look at all the incumbents that we've spoken about,
she had a darn good float too.
And I understand she floats well, and there we go.
That's a cue for you.
Is that a cue?
That's a cue. Yeah.
All right, we will be back. We're going to talk about the judges next, because that is countywide. It's an odd kind of a race, so we will be back.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum
government. And we are back at On Muskegon, Muskegon's #1 rated political talk show. And again, we do want you to phone in. We didn't mean to lose our earlier caller, 231-830-3109. Give us a call if you want to talk to Sean, Captain Fred. You could talk to the legendary Oscar, or you could even talk to me. Anyway, we're going through who we think's going to win, and occasionally we get off track a little bit, and we stab some of these hard-working candidates right where it hurts. But that's the nature of the show. Okay, we're going to talk about the judge race. This is the 14th Circuit Court replacing its Judge Jim Graves, who's, I think, just universally appreciated and just has done a fine job. And he has, I suppose correctly so, to the best of my knowledge, not come out and endorsed anyone. But we've got Joe Bush, Karen Gronout, Ray Kostraba, Annette Smedley, Michael Walsh, and David Wells. Thoughts? Let's Fred, you start off there.
All right. Well, first off, this is a somewhat emotional one for me because I have a personal favorite in this particular race. I won't mention his name.
Would you like a tissue, Fred?
I know. I got a tear in my eye here. So I would like to say that this race is extremely close, and it could go to any of them. And remember, there's going to be two that come through the primary.
Let's touch base here. There are 6 running. You only can vote for one, but the top 2 vote getters will run against each other in November. So make sure that you only vote for one. But in fact, the top 2 are the only ones will survive Tuesday's election.
All 6 of these candidates are very highly qualified. They're all well qualified to hold the job. Now. The people that I think are going to be in the top tier, I think that Kostraba will get the most votes. He's essentially been running for 4 years. He's got wide name recognition across the county. He is a very personable man. He looks good. He presents himself well. And quite honestly, he has aligned himself well this go-around. He's run a positive campaign this go-around. There hasn't been any, negative kinds of things. Now, when he was running against Will Ringo, different story.
Very different, and he got blown out.
I think he's going to be your top vote getter. The second one, and I base this purely upon money spent and name recognition. I think it's either going to be Joe Bush or Annette Smedley across the county because the Bush candidacy has spent a lot of money. They've got a lot of big signs out. They're pushing. They've got a lot of high-powered supporters out there. And from the other side, though, I think that Annette has had a lot of grassroots kinds of support, and she has got a ton of signs out there. Some in the roadway, some not in the roadway. I mean, all over the place. You can't drive down the road without almost knocking down an Annette Smedley sign. So she's put the time and effort in, and I think that one of those two is likely to get the second slot. My preference, I'm going to throw it in anyway, would have been David Wells. I think that David is just an absolute stellar attorney. He has done great work, has been involved in a tremendous amount of outreach, has all kinds of personal qualities and professional qualities that I find admirable, and if I could somehow get my vote to count 6,000 times, they would all go towards David. But I only
in Muskegon, you don't need photo ID to vote. So perhaps if you're really aggressive, you can go and do that.
My prediction is that Kostraza will be the top, and I think he's going to be quite a bit on top.
Okay, all right, and Sean,
I would have to agree. The Muskegon Chronicle has a very unscientific online poll that they've put up in the past few days for several of these local races. One of them being the circuit judge race, and according to those online unscientific voters, Kostrava takes the lead by a wide margin, and with like 37% of the respondents, and everybody else kind of divvies up the rest between them. And from what I can tell, looking around, it looks like he's got the best funded campaign as well. With the signs and the billboards, you see more his really than all the others put together. And he's running a tight ship this time. He had the experience of running just a couple years ago. I think he got his head around how to do a campaign, got his name out there, and he's doing a good job of it.
And who do you think will be second in this race?
Second, it's a little bit harder to say. I do think that Bush is running a pretty solid campaign, too. Smedley has the name recognition from, I believe it was 4 years ago, running
as prosecutor.
On the Republican side against Tony Tye for prosecutor. So she's got some name recognition from that. I would say my personal favorite is Mike Walsh. He seems to be running a solid campaign as well, and could have a very reasonable shot at being one of the final two.
Well, not surprisingly, I have a little different view here. This is going to be a Democrat-dominated race, again, because Republicans just don't have anything to get them really going. I think you're going to see a far greater turnout of Democrats in this August election. Republicans are going to say, geez, there's just no reason for me to go out and vote. And unfortunately,
but in the fall, the Republicans will reverse
fall's
that.
Different. Fall's very different. But in Muskegon, this is mostly Democrat issues. Republicans are not too many are going to get up and say, "Look, I'm not going to vote. I'm a Republican, but I'm going to pick up a Democrat ballot." I don't think you're going to see that. And I would say that Kostrava, which I think is the correct pronunciation, but I don't know. I don't know where I said where do they get the B in there, and Anyway, I was corrected by somebody. But I agree with you that I think he'll probably get the biggest votes because he's got union support. He's really, if you look at union money, I believe the SEIU and other really significant union sources are supporting him. So he will take a huge, huge percentage, and he'll probably lead in the primary very heavily, and that will suck votes out of the other Democrats. But I really believe that David Wells has got an excellent opportunity. Joe Bush has the support of the Republican establishment. Holly Hughes and other established, well-known Republicans have come out and supported Joe Bush. Primary voters, at least Republican primary voters, don't really like the establishment all that well. David Wells has had a very close race about 10 years ago as county commissioner in what was at the time a very Democrat county commission district. David's certainly got got signs up. He's run, my understanding, a very good campaign.
Very good ground campaign. He's really out on the ground.
Yeah, he's gotten the votes one voter at a time. And I think that when you look at the triangulation of how this election is going to go, you're going to have a Democrat, and it's likely that it's going to be Kostraba, I think, beating Mike Walsh, who's also going after the Democrat vote. I think the two women that tends, typically if you've got a man against a woman in a primary, more often than not the woman's going to win. There's a statistically, I think it's about a 4 or 5% margin that women tend to want to vote for other women. So you're going to have one of those two women will have a good run, but in fact, I don't get at this point that they're going to have enough to win. I think it's going to ultimately be between does Wells get that Republican vote over Bush. I think Democrats are going to tend not to like the fact that Bush is the big, well-known guy. David Wells truly is not, even though he's a past Republican Party chairman and a very middle-of-the-road one. He's not really affiliated nor allied with any ideology. So I think that he will be number two. I agree with you that the union power here in Muskegon and in primaries is going to bring Kostraba as victor. By the way, next weekend we will do a recap of our predictions, and I'm not quite sure who the guests are. I might just be here to make fun of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mostly you'll be making fun of yourself.
If in fact that I am make funnable, then we probably will have another issue that we'll talk about.
So you're taking notes of all our predictions to throw them back at us later.
Well, we are recording the show. Of course, you can listen to the show at ionmuskegon.com later this afternoon. And Oscar is videoing the show so that you can see it on, would it be a week from Monday?
Yeah.
On TV 38 or Comcast Channel 397.
Well, I will say that, I hope that you're right from the standpoint of David Wells. I'll just throw my last little pitch in there for him.
Well, again, these are all good folks. They would all make fine judges. We need to we're figuring who we think is going to win here. Okay, let's take a look at, and we'll take them in numerical order, the county commissioner primaries. One of the most interesting ones, certainly one of the most interesting races across the board, is District 3 county commissioner, and that is primarily Muskegon Township. The incumbent is Scott Plummer, the Democrat, and Susie Hughes, also running as a Democrat, is making some noise. Sean, take it.
Well, financially, this race is pretty well evenly split. Susie's got a budget of $1,700 roughly, self-financed, just like Nancy Waters. And Scott Plummer, the incumbent, is outspending her by a small margin, about $1,900, partially self-funded and partially fundraising. And this race is pretty interesting.
Well, Susie, I know that it's being run on issues from Susie's standpoint. She has very specific issues that she's mentioned in the newspaper. Have you heard any issues from Scott Plummer's standpoint?
I have not.
Okay.
But I do know that there's a lot of activity out there in this race. There's a lot of focus on, well, who's the more Democrat, and you've got Plummer as the incumbent, very much a traditional Democrat, and Susie Hughes kind of more of a newcomer to the party, a convert from Republican / Tea Party background.
Married to a Democrat, though, a very popular Democrat. Her husband, John Hughes, is running for re-election as Muskegon County.
Well, and I would say that, from the standpoint of, this is the Fred Birch take on it, and I know Susie fairly well. From a social standpoint, she's a social Democrat. She has social. Her issues are in line pretty much with the Democrat Party, but she is a fiscal conservative. She believes that you have to make logical decisions in order to make sure that you've got the government that you have the capability of having. So. I'm with Sean. I think this one is going to be a close one. I think this is one where the incumbency is going to hurt rather than help. Scott has been all over the board from the standpoint of decisions on the board itself, and I think Susie has put the ground game in on this one. I mean, when I say ground game, I mean she is out pounding the pavement. and going door to door and talking to people and really, really working on getting people to come in. The other side of it, though, is that Scott's got the establishment behind him.
He has the union support also. Don't poo-poo the establishment. But in this particular case, I think this is one of those ones where, people are going to look at it and go, okay, what has the board done for us, in actuality? Are they providing services, or are they just, providing government for government's sake? And, my view on that. But I think Susie has been articulating it across her district, telling people that, look, if you want real services, then you need to change horses. If you just don't care, stick with what you got. There won't be any change. But so I think in this particular case, incumbency is going to hurt Scott Plummer. I think Susie wins it in a squeaker. Sean, how about you?
And this is Scott's first time standing for re-election for this seat. It's his first term on the commission board. However, it's not the first time he's asked these voters to vote for him again. He had sat in the past on the township board from Muskegon Township.
So he's got some good experience.
Yeah, so he's got a longer relationship with this constituency than just this
Both
one term.
Both of them are good businessmen or businesswomen.
Business humans.
Yeah, business people. And they both have very good background from that standpoint. I think Susie got a 5-star. I know Susie got a 5-star from the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce. I don't know what Scott got.
Dead air.
Oh, sorry, I astonished everybody with my soliloquy there.
There we go.
I didn't mean
Sean,
to have
who
that
do you
happen.
think's going to win?
Well, I would agree that it's a squeaker. I'd probably see Scott a little bit more likely to come out on top, but it's by no means a shoo-in for anybody.
Yeah, that's going to be a very tight race. Okay, taking the next one, the one that actually we do have an expert on this race sitting in the studio, so we can.
I'll be glad to talk to that.
We can proselytize as much as we like. This is District 4, long time serving Republican Bob Skolnick, arguably the most famous name, I would say, arguably the most popular politician in Muskegon County today. Running against him, truly an incredibly intelligent, attractive.
Now, is the host going to recuse himself on this?
As a matter of fact, he's not. I am Jim Riley, and I'm running against Bob Skolnick in this race. So let's take Fred first.
Okay. Boy, this is a difficult one to predict. On the way that it's going to go. I will say this.
We do have the hook and the turn-off, Oscar, if necessary. If necessary.
Bob has certainly outspent his opponent. And I think that in the general election, I mean, this would basically be a Democrat against a Republican. Quite honestly, I love Bob Skolnick. He's a great guy, as a friend and as a benefactor of Muskegon, does all kinds of great kinds of stuff. And he spends a lot of money, spends a lot of his own money, but he also spends a heck of a lot of your money too, and so I think this would have been better to have Bob as a Democrat and Jim as the Republican, because that's really where the race should lie. Now, the question really becomes, though, if we're predicting who's going to win, is the name recognition and what factors actually go in. Bob's got overwhelming name recognition. Everybody knows Bob Skolnick. And he's got a tremendous online personality. He's got the money to spend. He's getting the money out. The other side of this, though, is how is this going to be impacted on by those other ticket races, the sheriff and the prosecutor race on the other side, and the other interesting things that are going on the Democrat side of the House. I suspect that there will not be a tremendous amount of votes being thrown about in on the Republican side in this particular race. So I think this is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. I've got to say that it could come right down to the wire. I know that Jim has put a tremendous amount of effort in getting his signs out, hawking his campaign and his positions. The issues are absolutely perfectly clear between them. Spender, non-spender. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
So who's going to win?
He's having a hard time with that one, isn't he?
You know, one of my better friends in life is sitting over here asking me to, to tell him that,
lying is acceptable. We are talking politics.
Yeah. I'm going to call it Jim Riley by 1 vote.
Oh, there you go.
Well, given that the Skolnick family has 3 votes and I only have 1, that says a lot. Thank you. All right.
Well,
Sean.
I think you're right about the dynamics. It's not going to be a race that's going to be decided by moderate voters. There's just so much more action going on the Democratic ballot this year. There's going to be small participation in the Republican primary. I do think that that Bob's got a lot of name recognition out there, a lot of goodwill personally in the community. That's gonna count for a whole lot, any way you cut it. He has been able to raise and spend more money on his campaign, and I think it's gonna come down to one deciding factor, and that is that Bob Skolnick has a very delicious chili omelet named after him at the Cherokee restaurant, and I just love that omelet. And I've never had a Jim Riley omelet.
I'm losing to an omelet. This is,
but when he said the one thing, I thought he was going to agree with me that it'll be 1 vote.
I was sitting here all perked up. All right, so I'm assuming now you're going to go with Skolnick because of the omelet.
I give Bob the edge. I don't ever rule anybody out.
Sean is very
if you come out on top, it'll be an upset and definitely something for you to celebrate. But
my invite to come back on the show has just been taken away.
I think you've got a challenge.
I am curious, Jim. Jim, how many votes do you think total will be cast in this particular race?
Well, I agree with both you guys on most things except for this ridiculous omelet situation. I think it's going to be very low turnout in our district. Again, the only races that you can even possibly vote in are the judge race, which again doesn't get people's blood boiling. Mm-hmm. Sadly the Senate race for a Republican nominee, and then of course Holly Hughes running against Rixey, which is not getting people going. And frankly, people don't get all excited about county commission races either, especially when you've got a long term gentleman looking to put 12 years under his belt. I do think that I have spent a lot of time knocking on doors. I have yet to find anybody who, when they see the condition of the county, that they're not shocked. And I think that the Chronicle has done a reasonably good job at promoting my issues about the jail. I've come up with very specific things that I do believe need to be addressed: the pension and the jail and the benefits where you've got union contracts that have got as many as 60, in some cases 62 paid days off. These are big issues, and when you have a Republican like Bob Skolnick, who is very popular, who's voted interestingly every year for prevailing wage. What's the big name of it? Anyway, they're requiring Muskegon when they spend money to use the prevailing wages, which is a requirement of federal and state, but it isn't a requirement at the county level for county money. Here you have a long-term Republican voting for something that is clearly a union and a Democrat issue. So we'll see. When I initially considered to run, it was very clear to me that I wasn't going to win. I even considered running as a third-party candidate so that I would be able to speak my piece through November. But when I looked at the numbers and I said, I have an opportunity. I could win if I get my message. It's going to be a low-turnout election. Republicans who vote in the primary tend to be significantly more knowledgeable about financial issues and other issues than those folks who vote in general elections. So
anything can happen, Jim. Just ask Jesse Ventura.
Well, there we Jesse Ventura. Well, I would say Ted Cruz in Texas just this past week. So I am going to I'm going to say that I do believe I'm going to win this election. It, without any question, is going to be close.
And Carmen's will be naming an omelet after you, too.
And unfortunately, Carmen's is in a beautiful downtown Muskegon, so that omelet will not get me any votes. Unless I decide to run for a higher office, which, who knows, maybe we'll do that. So anyway, okay, we've got one other very important race. Again, we only have 3 of the commission races that really matter. And we will get back to the.
No, they all matter.
Well, no. They're only 3 that will be determined in this election. These are the only ones that matter on Tuesday. And I'm hearing that fabulous Roger Miller music. So we'll come back and we will talk about the District 6, I believe it is, County Commission race.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum government.
All right. We are back at On Muskegon, Muskegon's #1 rated political talk radio show, and nothing is more political than the primaries that are coming up on Tuesday. Make sure you get out and you vote. Almost everybody who breathes because of motor voter is registered. So if you haven't voted already, absentee, your vote counts at least 10 times the power that it would have counted in the November election, just because so few people vote in my election. In District 4, Norton Shores primarily, if you're interested in some real change, as someone who's going to make some noise at the disaster that our county is in, you have a real easy, clear choice. If you hadn't thought about voting, you might want to consider Jim Riley. That's my little ad. You guys have been giving me some static off the air. Paid for by Jim Riley, most certainly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Actually, we do have a fair number of supporters to the show, too, financial supporters. Hey, one thing before we get to this final, we've got to move it quickly. Make sure, do vote. Even if there's only one person running, because they got to get one vote, and that has happened where a person has run, had something going on Election Day. This is in Michigan, and she didn't vote for herself, and in fact, she got 0 votes, and she was running unopposed.
Oh, no.
So it does matter. Okay, let's say we are running short on time. Let's look at District 6. This is Joshua Eldon Brady, Anthony Longmire, who is the current incumbent, and Charles Nash, well-known gentleman who is a past county commissioner. So, Sean, jump on it.
Well, this race is one of the more interesting ones. You got Anthony Longmire, who's first term in the position, and very non-controversial, shows up, does the job. Charles Nash, who was on the board before, decided to step away from it to try another venture. Now he wants back on the board, so he's due redistricting. He's in that district and challenging Longmire. And then you have Eldon Brady in the race also, which I know a little bit less about, but maybe one of you can fill in a little in his background. Nash seems to be doing by far the most aggressive campaigning. I'm not sure his positive, negative, favorable rating in the community right now. He's been involved in some controversy in the past, but he's got the most name recognition.
Who's going to win?
I give the edge to Nash a little bit.
I'm going with Longmire. He ought to win, and therefore he's going to win.
Oh, my good golly! I'm going to go with Nash. I just think that he, like you say, he's got his fingers deep in. He's got a lot of contacts, but that's another toss-up. I think that'll be a close one. Mm-hmm. I don't think Joshua Eldon Brady is connected with the community there enough. He's kind of a new guy, but there's a guy who may run later on. I forgot there's two others that do matter. In District 7, Jim Derazinski's running. He's the incumbent. He's got Ron Hayward. Now, these are not final elections. These are good, interesting primaries. I think Jim Derazinski's going to win that primary. How about let's just run quickly through that.
Ditto.
Pardon me?
Ditto.
Okay.
I think Hayward's going to give him a bigger race, and I think this is one where the Republican crossover might actually.
Okay. And then we've got Terry Sabo and Chuck Woods in North Muskegon.
Chuck Woods gets a strong base of support in the city of North Muskegon, which is very important in that district. I think he's going to take it.
I'm going to disagree and say Sabo.
Okay, I'm going to go with Chuck Woods also. He's a current city councilman. They both been working hard. They will ultimately go after John Snyder. And we are just about running. What kind of time we got left? We got 30 seconds. Okay, folks, don't forget to listen to us on eyeonmuskegon.com later on today. On TV, on channel TV 38 and TV 397. Next week, we're going to look at these results, as I said, and we're going to refocus on how solvent our counties and cities and township and school systems really are. And listen to us anytime you want on I Am Muskegon, and we'll be back next week, folks.